Hey everybody, this is Captain Kyle. Welcome to another installment of The Future of Cons. I am here with Dan Carroll. He is the Media Engagement Director for Dragon Con, the largest fan-run con in the United States, maybe even the world. How are you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing awesome, Captain Kyle. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm glad you could make it. Now, Dragon Con is so popular. There are generally 70, 80, 90,000 attend. I don't even know how many.
I can tell you that we have averaged over 80,000 attendees for the last 3 live shows.
Wow. And I have had the pleasure of being among that amazingly large crowd. I have to ask, we're going to talk about the future of Dragon Con, what's coming up with Dragon Con, because I know you're going to have it. But I want to talk about what was it like having to cancel last year?
Gosh, Kyle, that is a topic that obviously a lot of people are interested. But I can tell you that myself, the board, all the volunteers, we were devastated just as much as our attendees were. But we looked at the evidence. We looked at the state of the world. There was no way we could responsibly hold an event and either make it fun and safe. We could make it fun. I'm not sure we could have made it safe. We could have made it safe, and I'm not sure it would have been fun. And those two things are why we're there. We're there to make sure that people have fun and have fun in a safe way. They get to be part of their community. But for me, being the guy going around and doing the radio and the TV and talking about how we made this decision and that it's just the seriousness of the epidemic, how it impacts my city here in Atlanta, how it impacts the fans. But I think we did a really good job. And I'm not saying that just because I'm speaking for Dragon Con, but I'm also saying it because I think we did a really good job. Was it perfect? No, but for something that was thrown together in 5-6 months, I think the folks behind it were just brilliant. We even came out with memes, and we hit 600,000 panel views over the 5 days. So that's a pretty significant reach across 6 continents.
Yeah, definitely virtual cons seem to be, I don't think they're necessarily going anywhere. There will always be some type of virtual element now with the conventions, and this pandemic has taught us a lot about that.
Sure, and Dragon Con is already planning our virtual convention. We used to have a higher price point on our non-attendee virtual convention, and now we are, Kyle, we're putting it out to everybody for $10, regardless of whether you're coming to the live show or not. Because we want to be able to get the joy that is Dragon Con out there as far as possible.
Absolutely. Were there significant losses because of things that you had to cancel, or was everyone very accommodating?
We're an event that was put together to have fun. We do bring a lot into the Atlanta economy. Somewhere roughly 75 million. The last time we got official numbers, I don't know what it was for our last convention, to be honest, but we do bring a lot, and the restaurants and the hotels, they depend upon us in so many ways, but we also depend upon them. And we worked very closely, not just with the health authorities. We not only worked with the city and the state, we worked directly with our hotel partners to make sure that this was going to be something that made sense to everybody. And, they were very, very considerate, rolling over reservations till this year. And,
Yep.
There was a lot. There was a lot lost for everybody last year.
Well, it sounds like you have a great symbiosis with your business partners, and therefore everyone kind of pulled together to lessen the pain of a cancellation.
One of the things that's really important to us is The city of Atlanta is a dynamic city. It's, even going back to the joke from Midnight in the Garden of Evil, what do people from Atlanta ask? What do you do? And everybody's got a side hustle in this town. And it's just a city where people do things. And to be deprived of that weekend of doing things for the locals was really hard. Plus our arrangements with the city, with the fire department, with the police department, we work very closely with all of them. And they've all been very supportive. And going into next year, it may not be the biggest Dragon Con, but it's going to be the one that everybody's going to want.
Which actually brings me to my next point, talking about this year and how things have rolled over. Now, I'm sure there's been challenges. Are you going to limit the amount of attendees that can actually attend Dragon Con this year?
That is a fantastic question. And it's a question that I myself have asked. And the answer is that we anticipate a smaller Dragon Con than we're used to. We're not anticipating an 80,000, 85,000 attendee Dragon Con. But what we're doing is to work with the best, most recent data and guidance. We are waiting until we hit that 30-day window. And before that 30-day window, we are going to make all our decisions. And 30 days before the convention, we'll get all the information out to everybody in terms of our decisions and our guidance and where we need to go. There was a point where we anticipated actually wiping down every room after every panel. But the science doesn't justify that. Correct. So that's an example. And we just want to make sure that we're maximizing the safety. We don't want anyone to be worried about the safety at Dragon Con this year, but we also don't want anybody to say, oh my gosh, they ruined it because they did something that we didn't have to do. Mm-hmm. So we're playing it as moderate as possible. We're like the neutral people from Futurama. We are, but we do want to make sure we get that balance right.
Absolutely. And, we're going to be talking about some of the safety things that you might have in mind, but of course, everyone should take this interview with a grain of salt because the science might change, new things might come out, and you may not have to do certain things, or some restrictions may loosen, and you may decide that, 6 feet isn't necessary, 3 feet is good, or something like that. So, but I do want to talk about, the challenges that you've had this year. Now, you're saying you're going to have a smaller con. Have sales reflected some people's nervousness about returning to large events of this nature, or is that something you can share?
I can share a vibe. I can't share numbers because I don't know numbers. One of the advantages of being a spokesperson is I don't have to make any decision. I just talk about the decisions that the Dragon Con board makes. And I have yet to find one that I disagree with. So the general feel is that we are projecting a smaller convention. We want to set expectations for that. How small? Some of the other events that have been occurring are occurring at a 60% capacity. So maybe that's a number that we're considering, but that's not a science number. That's I guess you would call it anecdotal. The largest events in Atlanta to date have been soccer games that have been going in at 60% capacity. Braves are keeping it at 60% capacity. We want to make sure that we follow kind of industry standard, but also there's not an event like Dragon Con that has taken place here. It's not an open air stadium. So those are things that I can tell you are things we're going to be deciding. Right. But we're aware of it and we're thinking about it. And we're not just like holding off to the last minute and reaching into a hat and pulling out a number.
Right. You'll be monitoring the situation, monitoring everything. And I like the fact that you are making a point of you want people to have a safe, good time. Um, some events have already started up in some parts of the country. There's already been some cons returning. Some have done outdoor cons. Some have just done indoor cons with, various restrictions. And it's good that there are going to be, that COVID is going to be taken into account. Do you have any ideas? Have there been thoughts about whether or not masks will be required, whether or not um, you're going to do temperature checks, which I think it'd be difficult walking into the Marriott trying to shoot everyone in the forehead, but any type of restrictions or, that has been pretty much decided on, or is it still up in the air?
They have not, though, and that's that 30-day notice. But on the other hand, it's absolutely something that's on our radar and that we talk about. And this is one of the few places where I'm not a young gentleman. I'm an older gentleman. I'm an at-risk gentleman. So I have kind of a vested interest in this. And we know that the CDC has recommended that vaccinated people can get together without masks, without worry. I can go to the grocery store without a mask. I can go to the movie theater without a mask. Those are examples, but that requires us all to get vaccinated. Indeed. And we strongly, we have publicly said on our page, on our webpage, please get vaccinated. That just helps everybody. The science is real. The science is valid. I know myself that I have friends who are associated with Dragon Con who are immunocompromised to the point where a vaccine is not recommended for them.
Right.
And I know they're going to be wearing their mask their whole Dragon Con because they have not been vaccinated, but they also wear their mask all the time at home because they're with parents or with children. There's a lot going on, and it's just a way to take it seriously and protect as many people as possible.
There are definitely people who, for various reasons, cannot get it. But I would also encourage anyone who can get the vaccine, please go ahead and do that. Now, with booking guests, which is obviously a big part of Dragon Con, is going to that the Hall of Fame or the Walk of Fame rather, and going to these panels, seeing these guests. Have there been challenges with some of the guests who might be, again, nervous for themselves to attend a convention?
I don't want to speak for the guest committee, but I can say that it would make sense that there's difficulties logging guests. And there's just a different feel around. Now we have indicated some of the guests that actually signed up for 2020 and said, we'll be there in 2021. But the other thing about Dragon Con, and I go through this every year and it has nothing to do with the pandemic, is we tend to announce our guest list during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a few spots here and there throughout the year, but we tend to just flood things on after the end of June. So I would expect a lot more guest announcements to be coming within the next, we're recording in early June. So between now and the end of July, you will see that guest list expand greatly. And again, I don't make the decisions. I just talk about them.
It's always a disappointment when a guest has to cancel, but it's generally because of work. And if you want them to continue putting out these great shows.
Absolutely. And I think this year more than ever, that's a factor that the entire convention world has to think about.
Absolutely. I know it's very difficult to speak about specifics. Have there been any events that you definitely see being changed, such as the parade, because of the pandemic? Or do you anticipate that's going to be more spread out, or?
No, Kyle, obviously, when most people think about Dragon Con, the parade is one of the first thoughts that pop into their mind. It's something we're very, very proud of, and it's something that's been hugely successful. Right now, we are planning on having the parade. We're working with the city, and this is Braverman, my cat. Braverman's going on the floor. Hey, Braverman's on the floor. Okay, let me fix my mic. and get back to this very serious topic. The DragonCon parade is just part and parcel of what DragonCon is and has been since the first parade. I guess going now 15, 20 years, we've been doing this. But if the parade can't be done safely, we'll address it when we make that determination. But if there's any way possible, we're going to go on with that parade that we're planning.
Yeah, and since it's outdoors, probably one of the less risky events.
There are so many factors that determine what the crowd side is going to be this year. And those are going to be taken into account by people who are, and I like to use the phrase parade experts, and I'm not a parade expert.
Now, here's a question, not necessarily pandemic related, but there have been a lot of events that have actually moved outside of Georgia due to what has been called by some restrictive voting laws. Is that something that DragonCon is taking a stance on and would ever consider doing, or is it pretty much Atlanta is, always going to be home to DragonCon?
Well, Atlanta is always going to be home to DragonCon. We're not a traveling show. Every year I come to, I have people who I consider respectable members of the community asking me if we're going to franchise it. No, there's no way we could put on a show this size twice a year or 3 times a year.
Right.
We don't pop up in a convention center and then disappear. We're in 5 host hotels in America's Mart. We are part of the city. We've got a different feel. You've been there, Kyle, so you know that there's a different feel at DragonCon because you're staying in your building and you can go up and change. And that's how we became such a mecca for costuming. But in terms of any Georgia laws that may be considered restrictive, we have made no secret to our belief in equality, because I've been talking about safety and fun. We have a third guideline, which is inclusion. And we're a less formal situation here, but I'll tell you that I was once dealing with a major daily national newspaper, and they wanted a story that had some controversy. And I suggested the role of women at DragonCon and the safety of women. And the reporter laughed at me and said, "You're the gold standard for inclusion. You are trying to trick me into a story that's just a press release for DragonCon." And again, we're talking a little bit different here because we're talking about the nature of the industry. But it's true. Inclusion is really important to us in all areas, whether it's sexual, whether it's gender, whether it's racial, religious. I always used to joke that DragonCon was a place where Tea Party members and communists could sit down together and talk about the Federation. and we're never going to stop fighting for that. And we don't have political views, but we will express our views on diversity and on equality directly, even when it relates to laws, because we're not talking about the law, we're talking about equality and inclusion.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I've always admired about DragonCon is you meet all kinds of people there, all walks of life, all lifestyles, all genders, and those without. So
absolutely,
that is an awesome thing. So is there any information or statements or words of encouragement you want to pass on to those who are thinking about attending and maybe are on the fence?
If you're thinking about coming, know that you will be taken care of and you will be kept safe. And we're not going to do anything that's going to put people at risk. Go to www.dragoncon.org for more information. For people who have not been to a membership-based convention before, we don't sell tickets, we sell memberships. And we like that for a lot of reasons. And one of them is because it's a sense of belonging and it gives you discounts on Delta and Enterprise Rent-A-Car. A lot of people don't know about. And the only thing that I know, to answer an earlier question that I didn't quite hit, we do know we will not be having a film festival this year.
Okay.
So But we still will be, we still an in-person film festival. We'll still have the film track, and we'll still have conversations about film.
Do you have any thoughts about where the entire con scene will be going, or is there that you want to share?
Ironically, Kyle, that's where I thought the entire conversation was going to be. But I'm really glad we got to talk about the future of 2021. I think there's a couple of things that I look at for the next couple of years. One of them is the return of smaller conventions, and my absolute hope that those smaller conventions have survived through the change in the economy, and that they come back robust. And it may be that the smaller conventions are a lot of hope for the future. So that's one of my concerns, one of the things I'm thinking about for the long term. Secondly, I don't think the pandemic, while it slows down, I don't think the ramifications of it are ever going away. And or let me take that back. In 5 or 6 years, we'll laugh about it. And sure, people make jokes now, but I think in the short future, the measures for the pandemic will be in play for a couple of years. And these opinions are not Dragon Con's opinions; these are Dan's.
Mm-hmm.
So, and probably the last one is that with the fact that we have been socializing differently now. 16 months now, I want to say, yeah, it's 16 months or more that we've been socializing differently. I'm not sure that our first encounters outside are going to pick up where we left off. I think there's going to be a transition period back to the enthusiasm that we had pre-pandemic for the larger events.
Yeah, I agree. Lately, I've been to a few events and they've been small in scale with restrictions in place, but it's kind of easing back into it. And yeah, hopefully down the line, we'll have something very similar to what we had. But even then, there may still be some aspects of cons that we never quite get back to. There may still be some restrictions on, physical contact, and, people may not be so free to, kiss a celeb. It could be something that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot that we're going to have to figure out. But anytime you do prognostication, you always run into the same question of where were you on September 10th?
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to know what type of bizarre things are really going to happen. We just got to throw a little stoicism in there and want the things that happen to happen.
And we can't really go back to the last major, the Spanish influenza, and there are some parallels, but the world is so different now compared to then.
I'm kind of a nerd, you might have heard, and I'm going to quote Arnold Toynbee. Arnold Toynbee, the great historian. He's like the Carl Sagan of history. And Toynbee said, history always repeats, but never in the same way. Indeed. And his model was a spiral. You're always going up, you're going down, but it's never going to hit the same marks. And, I'll throw in chaos theory that everything depends upon initial conditions, and our initial conditions for this pandemic were radically different. So that's it. DragonCon is fun. www.dragoncon.org. I'm sorry for talking too much, Kyle, but I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. And definitely, yes, link in the description to get over to DragonCon. I plan to be there this year. I hope to see a lot of fellow nerds from all walks of life there this year. And it's a step on the road back to a new normal for cons. We'll call it that. It's going to be a new normal for cons. May not be the same normal, but we will get to a normal. So everyone, thanks again, Dan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for watching. And as always, have fun and follow your fandom.